Well, for the first 2 years here at SLU, my freshman sophomore year, I did have sort of like an identity crisis where I grew up with the idea that, white women are the most beautiful things in the world, and I came to college saying, I was born and raised here, my parents are immigrants, but I was born and raised here, so I'm American, I'm white, I'm not Asian. I may look Asian, but I don't affiliate myself with my Korean culture. And then junior year, I've been going through a very interesting transition where I was angry all the time. I was always conflicting between the culture that I grew up in, which is like a strict, traditional Korean household, and then when I came to SLU, or when I go to, school here in America, the American culture and the individualism clashes with the Korean collectivist culture. And so junior year, I was going through a rough transition where I was always unhappy. And after multiple discussions and dialoguing with many people and great friends, I realized I can't suppress my Korean identity. And that's one of the things that is difficult for a lot of multicultural students around campus, because especially if we grow up with one culture, however we go to school in America, we were born and raised here, it's kind of difficult to balance the two cultures. And I like to say I'm a TCK, so I'm a third culture kid, where I have to assimilate two cultures, and I'm American, but I'm also Korean. And so when I'm on my American side, things don't really affect me that much. I go about my day, it's very me focused, and then when I am on my Korean side, I become very self-conscious. I become very, the things that I do, the things that I say, and how people treat me when I'm in my, Korean zone is very different. And so I think it's a constant struggle of, okay, where do I fit in this society here, especially in this country, and how does other multicultural students deal with this? Are they struggling with the same thing? And so I would say I call myself a Korean American, but I switch off between the two, so I'm trying to find a way to integrate both sides of me in a sense. So I think that joining a Greek organization taught me a lot of things. Obviously, being in a sorority really teaches you the importance of women and the importance of confidence, especially with my organization, and women in other chapters taught me that. There are a couple of times though the past 4 years where I felt kind of the negatives to Greek life, especially being a first-generation multicultural student here on campus. Some of the students in the Greek organizations or in the Greek community I didn't necessarily associate with very well or connect with very well in regards to, a lot of them didn't quite understand the frustrations and the anger and the struggles of a lot of students of color on campus. A lot of the Greek organizations are, improving on that idea, and I think it's great that they're making that connection with, the multicultural organizations, along with the other NPH sororities and fraternities, which are the historically black fraternities and sororities. And I think that's really great that there are more collaboration and these conversations taking place. But I do realize that my past 4 years here, it was really difficult with some of the people I met in this community to really connect with them very well, and I felt like I had to be in my American side to be able to connect with them. And the only people that really accepted me for being a Korean American were very few individuals within my chapter, and I think that those are some of the closest friends that I'll continuously keep in touch with, because although they might not completely understand what it means to be Asian American here in the USA, I do think that they have a better perception compared to a lot of other individuals in the community. Hopefully when we come back as alumni 10 to 20 years, this community will improve, especially about talking about race and sexism and classism and all those homophobias and things of that sort, because I think that the conversations are starting with this community, but it needs to continuously to improve. I was in one of my classes freshman year, I think, and we were learning about something within the Chinese culture. And I remember some students turned to me and looked at me thinking I would know something just because they thought I was Chinese, and I was like, guys, I'm not Chinese, I'm Korean, I have no knowledge about Chinese culture. And there are a couple times where students are like, where are you from? And I'm like, you know, I'm from Los Angeles, California, born and raised. They're like, no, where are you from? And I'm like, from LA. It's like, no, what are you? And so I was like, okay, that's, I wasn't sure if I was, back then, you know, when I was going through that identity crisis, I was really confused in terms of like, why they asked me that. I was like, what do they mean? What am I? Are they asking about my roots, my ethnicity background? Because that would be the appropriate question to ask. But the fact that they were like continuously bugging me saying, where are you from? Really made me uncomfortable. They just assumed that, you know, because I look Asian, I'm probably somewhere from Asia. And so that was definitely one of the incidents, and the fact that, you know, there's a lot of Chinese international students on this campus. So if you're Asian, some people just assume that you're Chinese. That's also like pretty offensive, because Asia has multiple countries, multiple languages, and multiple cultures. We are not just one people. And so I thought that was very interesting, and also kind of ignorant, but in the sense that they just didn't know. And I think that maybe continuously, you know, going into the real world and meeting different types of Asians from different countries or backgrounds and ethnicities will help them to realize, you know, you can't ask that question, especially Asian Americans who were born and raised here, just like white people were. So one of the things I learned about, especially, you know, growing up here in the States, being born and growing up here, is the American media. One of the things that is psychologically put into students of colors, especially girls, is back in the day, I'm a 90s baby, most of the Barbie dolls were all white. Perfect body, blonde hair, blue eyes, and that psychologically does mess with you. Growing up, I was like, oh, that's the standard of beauty. I will never be beautiful because I'm not a white girl with blonde hair and blue eyes. And growing up, that is perpetuated by the media. You see TV shows where the hot girl and, you know, the character, like the superwoman, is a white woman, and you see rarely, you know, Asian woman or black woman or Latino woman being that strong, prominent, confident role in these TV shows. And I think what's more even sad is Asian women, which I learned here at SLU, I had no idea beforehand when I was coming from Los Angeles, that Asian women are highly sexualized in the media, pornography, things of that sort, which I found very interesting. And I know that it's kind of really upsetting and disturbing in a sense that you know, white men especially sees Asian women as like fetishes, and I think that's, I don't know, disturbing. But in the sense, another one of the biggest things I have, especially with how the media portrays Asians, is Asian men. So if you look at the media, you see Asian men as always the nerds, the geeks, the losers. They're never the hot guy on campus. They're never the cool athlete or the ones that, you know, save people. It's always white males. And so I think that, you know, the media is shifting. You're seeing more cultural shows or shows that are portraying more people of color in certain roles. But I think that we definitely came a long way to get here. However, it still needs to improve, because there are so many critics saying like, oh my gosh, we can't have, you know, white people will, you know, not be able to obtain careers in the media just because, you know, more people of color are getting these roles. No, like, people of color have been getting these side roles, these roles that, you know, are looked down upon, that perpetuate stereotypes. You know, I think it's about time that these stereotypes are stomped upon, because they're not true. They're not true. Asian men are not feminine. There are plenty of masculine-looking Asian men out there, hot Asian men. There are Asian women who are intelligent and more strong-minded than some white women are, or how white women are portrayed to be. Feminists back in the 70s, and Asian women are supposed to be submissive and weak, and that's why white males tend to like Asian women. Things like that need to change, because we are in 2015 and we're heading to 2016, and I think that it's ridiculous that these stereotypes still exist, especially in our generation. So coming from Asian culture, most of the Asian culture is very work hard, you know, put your head down, just work really, really hard to get to the top. And that's kind of what we're taught. And so this year it was really, really interesting for me. I thought that I learned so much from Occupy SLU, from the Ferguson protest, and it really allowed me to see multiple perspectives. I didn't I didn't know what allyship meant, and I didn't know where my role as an Asian American woman meant. But one of the things that I started to realize after, constantly dialoguing and getting to know what these issues are and where I stand, I am definitely a supporter of the Black Lives Movement, an ally for the Black Lives Matter movement. Mainly because, I have students that I know around campus, that are Latinas or from the Indian population or from the Asian population, and they're like, Nicole, what about Asian lives? What about Latina lives? What about Indian lives? Right? Like, I'm not like invalidating that any, human life is not important. However, as an Asian American woman, I come from the model minority, and what that means is Asians, stereotypically, we're seen as more intelligent. We are the doctors, we are the lawyers, we're the closest things to Caucasians, and so white people can tolerate us. And so they're like, oh, we could tolerate them. They're in these high positions and they're intelligent, so we don't need to, worry about them. However, we're still not on the same level as white people are, and how white privilege is a real thing in society. So people who don't believe in white privilege, I'm sorry, but there is such thing as white privilege. There really is. If you look at Latinas and the black population, they are the minorities that are the most oppressed. And the reason why I'm a supporter of the Black Lives Matter movement is because historically, Asians, we chose to come to this. My parents chose to come to this country. Black people did not choose to come to this country. We were never slaves in this country. They were. There's a huge difference. And the fact that we are a minority, but still not on the same level as Caucasians, we need to be allies for other minorities and uplift them. As an ethical human being human is to assist others, and the fact that historically this country has oppressed the black population for 200 years. If you're upset about the whole, what about Latina lives, Asian lives, Indian lives, speak out. Because when was the last time you saw Indians and Asians get together and speak out about why they're upset? I've never seen that before, to be quite honest with you. Latinas are starting to speak out a little bit right now, but the Asians and Indian community haven't been speaking out. They're just complaining that, why are these protests going on? Why are you supporting, Occupy SLU and Ferguson and the black people, the black community here around the country and around the world. And the reason why is black people have been speaking out for 200 years. They've been organizing and speaking out on these injustices, and to be quite frank with you, discrimination, racism is so institutionalized and so low-key that it's so sad to think that things like Ferguson have to happen for these conversations to start, because these conversations should be taking place every day. We say that we're in a melting pot, but unfortunately there's so many disparities between different minorities, and the fact that it's not talked about is because it's so institutionalized in this society, in this country. And so as an Asian American woman, a first generation Asian American woman whose parents are, from an immigrant country, I really want to challenge the Asian community to really think about why you should be an ally to other minority populations, and why white people should talk to white people and educate other white people. My job is to talk to other Asians and educate other Asians, and together we should stand in solidarity, because eventually if we continue to ignore this, people who are like, oh, these issues don't exist, oh, privilege, I don't talk about it, like very narrow-minded, I'm sorry, but that's shifting. We're going to go into the real world where you have to work with different types of people who might have different stories, and the fact that you have a very narrow mindset and you say privilege doesn't exist, oppression doesn't exist, it's going to hurt you in the end. And to be quite frank with you, those people who refuse to look at the other perspective, it's going to only hurt yourself, and you'll be angry and frustrated with yourself. And so I went through this huge transition this year, and I looked at different perspectives. I get to see both sides, and I'm still learning, but I think it's important that we talk about these issues and have these conversations, because these are the conversations that are relevant, that are important, and that need to be had.